Okay. My name is Courtney, and I had Vibrio cholerae Pacini. The symptoms are watery diarrhea, which can sometimes be present with blood, abdominal cramps, nausea, vomiting, fever, headache, chills, and dehydration. Cholera is an infection of the small intestine by strains of Vibrio cholerae. It is a chronic illness that can be lethal if left untreated. The constant loss of fluids can lead to shock, low blood sugar, low potassium levels, coma, kidney failure, or death. Cholera is not genetic because it isn't passed down, it is transmitted, and it isn't congenital because one isn't born with it. Vibrio cholerae is a bacterium that causes cholera. Its class is Gamma proteobacteria. It is fermentive and anaerobic. So basically, we know that anaerobic means that the presence of oxygen is harmful to it. But all the rest of that basically means it's unicellular, which means having one cell or carrying out all of its functions within one cell. And it cannot synthesize its own carbon. So basically, it pulls from other organic sources around it to generate enough energy to grow. It's a gram-negative bacilli with short rods, often curved, with a singular polar phalangium causing active motility. As a result of contracting cholera, a toxin is secreted in the small intestine. This toxin causes the body to release enormous amount of water, which leads to the watery stool, which leads to dehydration. Cholera has two, sorry, my computer's being weird. Why won't that go away? Oh, sorry. Cholera has two subunits. The first subunit basically attaches itself to the small intestine and creates a hole. That second subunit goes through that hole to regulate the specific reactions that regulate the cell fluid in the small intestine, which is what leads to all of that excess water and the watery stools. Transmission. Anyone is capable of catching cholera, but it's most easily transmitted through poor sanitary environments. So places like public restrooms or communal restrooms. So if you live in a dorm or say you live in a house where you all share a washroom, it's really important to keep that washroom clean because that is a breeding ground for cholera. Also, people with low stomach acid. Stomach acid helps to fight off foreign things, that are present within the gut. So if someone has low stomach acid, they're more susceptible to catch cholera because they don't have enough stomach acid to kind of help fight. People who love to eat raw or uncooked seafood are more susceptible, as well as anyone who's been in an unclean body of water with, say, an open wound. Cholera uses iron to grow, so people who have higher iron levels are also at higher risk for infection. And cholera is also being said to be transmitted fecal to oral. So I think that would be more for people who tend to go like camping and things like that. You're outside, you go to the washroom, there aren't necessarily the best sanitary precautions out there. So people don't tend to wash their hands as much and then they eat and things like that. So that's how that happens. Epidemiology. The first cholera outbreak was in India in 1817. This outbreak is said to have stemmed from contaminated rice. This rice was traveling along trade routes. By 1820, it had spread to Thailand, and by 1821, it was spreading more vastly from troops traveling for battle, killing over 100,000 people in its first sweep alone. There were many cholera outbreaks, primarily originating in India, but in 1832, cholera made its way to America. The last outbreak of cholera was in 2017. It affected 500,000, but only killed 2. Most cholera is treated with oral rehydration therapy, which is basically just them telling you to push fluids, things that would put electrolytes back into your body. zinc supplements, IV fluids, antibiotics. There is a cholera vaccine, and basically what that does is place live cholera present in the body so that the body can build up an immunity to it. With more frequent and prolonged outbreaks of cholera, our social and economic future is in jeopardy. Socially, it could put a stop to travel and tourism, which is how a lot of places make their money, which then affects the economy. Economically, unclean water and seafood make it impossible to barter for goods or services. Places outside of where the cholera pandemic may be present can limit or restrict travel and import export of that certain area, which drastically can affect economy and cause a chain reaction for surrounding areas. That was my brief synopsis of cholera. These are just two images I picked because I feel like they show the shape really well. You can see the phlogium in the back, that little tail thing. It kind of just looks like a squiggly line. And they kind of look like jelly beans, or like I said, just little like commas or tiny rod shaped things. So that is cholera. Thank you all for being present. How do I get out of this?